Hey guys, it's JVilla777 here, and this is my second video for my own challenge from 0 to 100 playing 1 cent 2 cent no limit zoom 6 max. And with this video I'm not gonna have my HUD up, I'm just gonna play normally, and I'll also try and make the videos roughly about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. My last video, it went for about an hour, and I feel like that's a little bit long, so I'm definitely gonna take breaks after about 30 minutes to 40 minutes and then just continue on with the session. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and open up 4 tables of zoom. Okay. So first hand, table 4. So Ila decides to limp on the button, and we do have King Jack, so we're just gonna raise it up. And he seems like a pretty fishy player. So he's playing one table, and he also doesn't have a full stack. So we're just gonna go ahead and c-bet this. Kinda don't want to check call, or basically check fold. He'll be raising most of his ace x top of hands on the button anyways, so I wouldn't normally put him on an ace on that flop. Okay, 7-6 suited. We'll just mark that versus an under the gun raiser. So what I've said in my first video, how I basically built my bankroll, it wasn't through Zoom, it was just from normal 6 max tables. And basically what I did was just play my strong hands super strong, and also play my weak hands pretty passive and weakish. What I've noticed in the micro stakes is a lot of people just play a bunch of hands regardless of position, regardless of hand strength and whatnot, and so it's very easy to just exploit players in these micro stakes. Okay, so Leslie decided to raise it up under the gun. We're definitely not folding pocket nines. Okay, so he's playing about one table. Ace 10, table 1, we're definitely gonna raise it up in mid position. And Shampoo looks like he's playing one table. Okay, so just gonna c-bet this in table 1, and table 4 I'm just probably going to mark this just because he doesn't have 100 big blinds, and we do have another player behind us. I kind of don't want the other player, if I call, I don't want the other player shoving, and you know, we would pretty much be in a pretty shitty spot. Okay, so turn, I'm just gonna bet this pretty big, just because I think he can call with at least a queen, king queen suited, king queen off with a king of diamonds, so we can get called by a lot of hands. Now table 3, I'm just gonna lead out here. So NM decided to limp on the button. Okay, so Shampoo decided to call. When he calls the turn, I would assume that he has pretty much a fairly strong hand that can call most bets. So I'm just gonna bet this fairly big, just to get max value. And this guy decides to limp in table 2. Okay, so we're just gonna... you can raise with pocket sixes in the small blind. But I just decided to limp. I wanted to see a flop. Just gonna reshove here. I mean, you can have a straight flush, I guess, but we're definitely not folding the nut flush. Now table 2, I'm just gonna lead out. Basically, roughly about pot and pot plus. Okay. Just gonna make a note on this player. So he's basically one tabling, I think. Yeah. One tabling. Called Queen 9 suited BU. Flat flush draw. Flat flush draw. And I think it's fairly important just to take notes on players, because you play so many hands and you kind of lose track on who's playing on the tables. So I think it's always good to just have some sort of history with other players. Okay, 7-5 suited. This guy limped under the gun, and he's basically a fish because he's a short stack and he's also limping under the gun. But we're gonna fold. Okay, so Naviox, he seems like a reg to me. He's playing 4 tables and he's also got a full stack, or at least like 150 big blinds. Okay, I sometimes would 3-bet hands like this on the button. However, since the small blind and the big blind, they both have roughly about 50 big blinds, there's really no point in isolating the cutoff. Okay, oh my god, I'm busy. I'd rather bet here than not. We can definitely bet small. I don't see him folding though on a flop like this. But I kind of want to take control of the actual hand. We're just gonna check back here. There's really no point in betting the turn, just because if he calls the flop on a board like that, he'll most likely also call the turn, so we're not really value betting. I'm just gonna give up though. So Azaz is a one tabler as well, and he's also not playing 100 big blind poker, so we're just gonna raise this up from the small blind. Hopefully he has something strong as well, because he's raising under the gun. Well, that was a pretty nice gift to him. Okay. Ace Jack. So I called pocket threes here versus under the gun. It looks like everyone on the table has over 100 big blinds. This might be a fold versus under the gun if the people behind me have like less than 100 big blinds. I think I'm just gonna take a stab here on table 2. and we obviously can't win, so I'm just gonna pot table 2. So front master, he decides to 3-bet, or he decides to raise and decides to 4-bet in a small blind versus big blind. I don't really see any reason. I'm definitely not folding, but I guess I'm just gonna shove here. The ace king. I'm also gonna take note of the other player with the hand previously. So he's pretty much a fish. So 2x UTG ace king, and then 4-bet shove versus 3-bet. Okay, I'm just gonna refresh these tables. I'm also gonna make note on the other player in the blind versus blind situation. Whoops. I call pocket 6s here. Okay, so blind versus blinds, SB raise, and then 4-bets versus BB 3-bet. Folds to shove, folds to shove. Okay, I can check back 6s here. I don't really see him folding on the flop versus my bet. Just because he will definitely check call here with pocket 10s, pocket 9s, pocket jacks. Okay, we'll open up 2 more tables. So this player limps under the gun. We do have pocket 5s, and we're just gonna ISO him. However, he decided to fold. Now PKR, I don't have any stats or anything on him. I can't really see. We can definitely 3-bets, but in a blind versus blind situation, I prefer a call with these hands. Now Girlie on Drugs played with this player a fair amount, and he's basically 8-tabling. Just gonna 3-bet Jack 10 here versus the button. So BNJ Alves decides to shove on the button versus my open. He is a short stacker, so just gonna call this off. Take notes, fish. Okay. Short stacker shoves king jack off. Button. Oops. Hang on. Just definitely gonna call this if he shoves. Yeah, so shoves king jack off on the button versus MP open. Okay, so Shirilio decides to 3-bet He's 3-betting pretty light. We are pretty deep, so I kind of really don't want to bloat up the pot. I can play this out of position perfectly fine. Okay, so now table 4, just gonna see bet this versus Giorgio. Okay, so when Shirilio checks back the flop, I can basically put him on a lot of pocket 10s, pocket jacks, pocket 9s as well. So I'm definitely gonna bet this. And I feel like he has at least pocket jacks with 1 spade also, and some sort of ace 10 hand maybe. I think we can get called even if we bet just a little bit smaller. That seems pretty weird. Not 100% sure why he checked back the turn. Just gonna take note. 3-bet min, queens, check back, top set, played it passively. Okay, so I should have bet the flop. I think I was just running out of time. But this is definitely a call. And Dada and Dad's 1-9 decides to pot it. Obviously, we're gonna fold. We only have ace high. Queen 10 off. Definitely folding. We don't really need to get too crazy in a button versus blind situation. With that Queen 10 hand, I mean, like, I'll be more inclined to call if I had more reads, but I basically don't have any information on him. I felt like I wanted to 3-bet. Hang on a second. I wanted to 3-bet the hand previously. This hand. Except he's one tabling and he's raising like 3.5x. So I feel like his range there is fairly strong. I'm gonna check here on table 3. We can bet it versus 1 player, but versus 2 players, it's very unlikely that that's gonna get through on a board like that. So we're just gonna fold. Okay, I'm basically gonna 3-bet squeeze this hand on table 4. I feel like Durkadur is a competent player just because he's playing 4 tables. And he might recognize this as a squeeze, or either just me having a fairly strong hand. So he's obviously gonna fold almost always, and so does Torres. Now ace 10 suited versus cutoff on the button, I would definitely 3-bet this as well. Sorry. Okay, so as a default as well, I've included king 9 suited as my 3-betting range in the big blind versus button. Whoops. And win part, I would assume that he thinks I would c-bet my entire range on this board, which most of the time I will. And that's a fairly good card for us. Table 3, I'm just gonna bet this half pot. I feel like Ken Rota called with at least some sort of weaker queen. Okay, I'm gonna bet the turn and most likely shove the river on table 4. And table 3, I feel like when Kenron calls the flop, he could have a queen. No, actually, when he calls the flop and then checks back the turn, he could most likely have a queen, queen 10, or at least some sort of jack 10 hand, and also some sort of a hand like ace 2, ace 3, or something like that. I don't think I can value bet this with just a second pair. So I think, yeah, I'm just gonna check. Okay, I'm just gonna make note. I think I might just play 3 tables for now, because I'm always running out of time every time I try and take a note of a player. So call 8-8 button and float ace XX. Flop and will not bluff. Then check 2. Okay, so basically also in the hand previously on table 4, when I decided to 3-bet win part, I would just most likely assume that he has hands such as pocket pairs, some sort of suited connector hands, and when he calls the flop, I would assume he had a hand like 8-7, 9-7 suited or something like that, even 6-7 suited. And he obviously hands like that, it can't really withstand pressure unless he had like the 6-7 of diamonds or something like that, or at least 8-7 diamonds. Now I'm gonna play this out of position with the queens. I basically know that TTR, he's playing 4 tables, so when someone plays 4 tables, I would assume that they're pretty competent in what they're doing. So in a hand like this, I would just assume that he thinks I'm raising under the gun with fairly strong hands, and if he's 3-betting me and he's on the button, his range will be pretty much polarized, so it'll be either on the stronger side or just bluffs. And on a board like this, I can see him 3-betting hands such as like 4-5 suited, 6-7 suited, and all his strong hands. Okay, so table 3, our box Eucas opens. So 3-bets. I have a note here that he 3-bets ace jack suited. And I'm just gonna actually bet table 4. So he 3-bets ace jack suited, and then pots pair and flush draw. I'm just gonna 3-bet squeeze this. And I don't see any reason why I wouldn't with ace king. We're just a little bit over then. Well, actually Nikon has just a little bit less than 100 big blinds. And I think Boxyukas knows often enough that I probably would either raise here with super strong hands or just random bluffs as well when I'm squeezing in that spot. Okay, so table 2, we do have pocket tens. Barley decides to open under the gun 2x, and SSKB decides to call, and it seems like they're pretty fishy just because they don't have full stacks. Now on a board like this, I'm just gonna donk because I feel like I'm gonna get called a lot with a bunch of smaller pocket pairs and a lot of ace highs. I kind of don't, I don't like check calling here versus 2 players. I'd rather take initiative and take action. And also so I can control the bet sizing. Okay, so table 2, basically red Ed decides to defend from the small blind versus my open from mid position, and also Kurisev came along. I'm just gonna check back here just because I don't really see any merit in betting on a flop like that. It hits the small blind's range pretty often. So just gonna fold. We don't have anything, we only have ace high anyways. Okay, Kanuta Star decided to call. I decided to defend from the small blind. We do have King Jack suited. We can bet and we can also just check back. I don't have anything, I only have King High, so I think I'm just gonna bet this half pot and try and take it down here. Now table 2, we do have top pair. I'm just gonna bet this half pot as well. And I can see Lenovo calling here with a bunch of pocket sevens and smaller pocket pairs, and also a bunch of flush draws. And we're just gonna try and get all the money in versus at least a flush draw or something, or at least pocket eights. Table 4 decided to check back on a board like this. If Liptonic decides to check the turn, we're definitely going to bet it. But if he's betting the turn this small, and we do have pocket nines, definitely not folding. And he decides to check back the river. So I think we can make a thin value bet here. I think we can go for at least like 11 cents or something. Hopefully I get called by like a7 with 1 club. At least, yes, something like King 7 with the King of Clubs. I'll be opening from the small blind fairly wide, and I'll be making it 3.5x just because most of the time I just don't like the big blind calling. I don't want to give them the right odds to call. And also I'll be raising 3.5x from under the gun and also mid position. Now Freakazoid, he's playing 4 tables, and I would assume he's a fairly competent player as well. And if he's 3-betting from the small blinds versus mid position, I would assume that his range is fairly strong because he knows that I'm raising from early position anyways. And he decides to c-bet a board like this, and we basically don't have anything, so just gonna fold it. Now Anthony decides to open from the cutoff. I called from the button with deuces, and he checks the flop. Now when he checks the turn, I would assume he has some sort of pocket sevens, pocket eights, and I'm not 100% sure if he will fold that. I don't think he will fold even if I bet here. He's not gonna fold pocket eights or ace 2, so just gonna take note. Raise ace 2 suited, CO does not bet on missed board. Okay, so this is a fairly good spot to just call with pocket fours. Under the gun and mid position, they're fairly deep. Now table 3, we're gonna squeeze this. I feel like Christian, he's basically playing 2 tables. Now on table 4, we're just gonna raise this up. Just want to get the money in. If he does have pocket kings, or at least like ace queen or some sort of hand. Basically crushing him. Now table 3, I decided to squeeze, and big blind called, and so did under the gun plus mid position. And under the gun basically pots it. We do have top pair, top kicker flush draw, so we're just gonna shove it in. Okay, so this is what I mean by a lot of players just want to play all hands all the time. You can basically exploit them just by playing your super strong hands super strong, and just playing your passive hands just weak. Okay, so Freakazoid decides to open from mid position. We do have pocket queens. We're gonna 3-bet this. And on a board like Jack 10-6, and it's a fairly wet board, it's okay to bet, and my default here would be just check calling. I want to try and get my hand to showdown at least, because it would really suck if we just get raced on the flop without any information. So once he bets the flop, I would assume that he's putting me on a hand like ace king, ace queen, and when he bets the flop also sorry when he bets the flop also, I can see him having king queen, or at least ace jack. I mean, he can have king queen, but I do have 2 queens already. And when he checks back the turn, I can also see him having a flush draw, but the question is, would he barrel a flush draw on the turn? Just gonna bet. Table 4 fairly small. Okay. So now there's 2 flush draws on table 4. So we're gonna bet this fairly big. And we're basically gonna shove this. So he's probably gonna get, when we shove, so he's roughly gonna get 4-1, so he would need at least 20%. And I can see him having ace jack something. Oh, he had a set. Nice hand, buddy. Okay, so I'm just gonna take note. So freakazoid, raise king 10 suited, MP. Call 3 bets. Bets second pair. When check 2. Give up turn and river. Okay, so I decided to open 8-5 suited button, table 2. And basically the big blind called. We do have pocket 8 and it's pretty weakish on a board like this, so I'm just going to check back. And he decided to float with the queen jack on the flop. Okay, so I just wrote down for Ballister's note. Basically that he floats a lot versus weak bets. Might as well just, it's a crying call for 2 cents. Okay, so ace-5 suited, sorry, ace-5 offsuit versus the button. I think I can just call. We are over 100 big blinds, so I think it's a pretty reasonable call. And we're definitely not folding versus 1 bet when we do have second pair top kicker, even though we don't have any backdoors. The turn is definitely a fold, in my opinion. Excuse me. So just gonna go over my play here. Yes, so my bet on the flop was fairly small. I actually like my play here as well, because I think we can get called by weaker aces, at least like ace-5 suited, or at least something like ace-jack. I can't really see him having ace-king. I could also see him having ace-10. That would make sense, and also pocket 10s. Might have been just a thin value shove actually, but we only had less than a pot size bet left. Well, actually we only had 1/3 bet left, so I think, yeah, it's a pretty reasonable shove. That was my plan from the turn anyways. Just to blow up the pot on the turn and shove all the rivers. Well, I think we can check back the river if it was like a club. Yeah, I think that's completely fine. That's an okay shove. Okay, so AK Alex decides to 2x on the cutoff. We do have Jack 10 on the button. This is a fairly standard race for me. Fairly standard 3-bet. Okay, so that's a fairly good card for us. So we're definitely gonna continue barreling. And he snap called the turn. I think I'm just gonna shove here. He could have ace something clubs, but or he could just have like a weak flush draw, some sort of Jack 10 clubs as well, maybe. Yeah, also because he could very well have the ace of clubs or the nut flush draw, but then again, he would have at least maybe check raised me on the flop, and he could have willingly wanted to get it in. But if he just check called, I would basically put him on a hand like pocket 9s, pocket 8s, even pocket 10s. And we do have 110 in our hand. So it looks like it's more of a pocket 9s, pocket 8s hand. But then he called the turn. So yeah, give or take, he could also have a flush draw. If he calls the turn, it's most likely a flush draw. So call flop, call turn, and then fold river. It looks like a flush draw. Because I think pocket 9s and pocket 8s would definitely fold versus a bet on the turn once the ace comes. Otherwise, like if he didn't believe me, if he just calls even when the ace came on the turn, then he's just most likely willing to call on the river if he calls on the turn, if he did have pocket 9s or pocket 8s. So blind versus blind, Ibrahia raises from the small blind. We do have ace 4 offsuit, and we do have top pair. There's no reason to raise, and we're definitely not folding. So on the turn, once he checks, we can go for like a blocker bet, or at least like, yeah, we can definitely block bet it and then just check turn, or check river, sorry. Table 3, 7-6 suited. I decided to open from mid position, and small blind defended. And on a board like that, small blind's range is fairly weak. I don't understand. I'm not actually understanding why a lot of these players are calling from the small blind only to just check fold most flops. This is basically the difference between these stakes and I would say up to when you get to about 25 NL, 16 NL, players are more competent, they're more aware of their position and ranges. But in 1 cent, 2 cents, everyone's just playing like a maniac. Everyone's just going crazy. They want to play every hand. Actually, I didn't even take note of the player that gifted me. So Christian Liev, just gonna take note. Raise 7-6 suited, under the gun, call, 3-bet squeeze. Okay, so table 2, I'm just gonna call this A7 suited. And if we don't hit anything, obvious check fold. Okay, so back on this hand history. So he calls the 3-bet squeeze and then pots ace XX flop. Call all in. Fish. Okay, I'm definitely going to bet table 2. So we'll just label this guy fish. So table 3, going to bet this. Emmanuel has been disconnected, so I think he was just folded. And when Vinkashaw calls, I would assume he definitely hit this flop. Some sort of draw, some sort of at least 7-5 suited, 9-8, 9-10. But regardless, we're behind once. I feel like we're behind once Vikusne calls. Just gonna check here on table 2. We can argue betting here, but I don't think he's ever going to fold versus a bet. So in my opinion, if I do bet pocket 2s, it will be as a bluff and not as a value bet. And plus he's a short stacker, so he could play versus us very, very well. Put a lot of pressure on our pocket pairs and basically have to fold on later streets. Okay, I think Vakusnai, once he check calls flop, he's definitely gonna check call turn when the 3 hits. I don't ever see him folding on that card, so we're just gonna check back and see if our hand improves. Yeah, just gonna check this back. Okay, so Boxukas basically calls from the cutoff versus mid position. On a board like this, I'm gonna bet it fairly strong. Okay, Barsam decides to 3-bet me from the big blind. We do have pocket 3s, and it's a fairly light 3-bet. So we're not folding pocket 3s, and we also we have more than 100 big blinds each. And he decides to raise it. Oh, he decides to c-bet. I think I'm just gonna flat. I think I'm gonna 3-bet ace-5 suited. Actually, I won't. This guy's a maniac. Okay, so table 4, he decides to check back. I think I'm going to bet this fairly small, at least 19, just to get value from like pocket kings, pocket queens, and also pocket jacks. Okay, so I'm gonna end this video right here. I'm also gonna continue once I finish uploading this video. I'm gonna play last hands. Okay, so I'm gonna end the video right there. Like I said, I'll be uploading videos. I'll be uploading these videos. These videos will be roughly about 30 to 40 minutes each. And not forgetting our main goal. Our main goal is to reach $100. So this will be my second video. And go ahead and open up holdem manager. Okay. Okay, well, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video.